Welcome to Deep River Farm. We're going to talk about building raised beds and what you need when you build one. And we're going to go ahead and cover all the known aspects of it and the benefits of it. The first thing you want to do, now what we've got sitting here, I'm going to tell you to start with, this is actually a bookshelf, but it serves the perfect purpose. I just painted this for my wife. It's a bookshelf that's going to go in an elementary school, but this serves as a perfect example of a raised bed. If I hadn't told you it was a bookshelf, you'd never known it, other than it's painted orange. On your raised bed, you want to make sure you're not using any type of treated material. That includes telephone poles, which contain creosote, cross ties, any treated lumber. The ideal lumber to use is cedar if you can find it. If not, hardwood, oak, maple, hickory, any kind of hardwood. Last resort would be pine. Your raised bed needs to be at least 12 inches. Preferably 18 if you're going to do root crops. But you can get by with growing radishes, turnips, beets, onions, and stuff like that in a 12-inch deep bed. But you need a minimum of 12. And the reason being, even your above ground crops like okra and tomatoes, if you're using a really good soil that's loose and not compacted, the root system will definitely go down to the bottom of that 12 inches. So you want 12 inches. You want a minimum or a maximum, let's rephrase that. You want a maximum of 4 feet wide. And why is that? You can reach across 3/4 of it. So when you're up here working, you can reach over at least half of it and gather your produce. If not, you're going to be getting into the bed. What happens when you get into your raised bed? You compact the dirt. That's something you don't want to do. You're better off with your loose dirt. That way it gives your root systems opportunity to grow. Seek out the proper nourishment. You'll have a whole lot better outcome with the amount of produce you get. And it saves you a lot of work having to turn it and loosen it back up. Occasionally you're going to have to step in that bed, maybe to pull up something or whatever, maybe get a knee in there on it. You're going to pack it up, but you can just take your hands like that and just loosen it back up. So you want a minimum of 12 inches deep. 18 is perfect, especially if you're going to plant potatoes and stuff like that. That's going to require some good depth to work with. You want to make sure that you use a weed barrier underneath so that you don't have weeds coming up through this. Outside of that, your weeds are not going to come through your boards. If you've got them sealed up good, you get 2 1x6s, and you can always throw a line of silicone through there so you don't have a weed work from the outside and come on the inside. But your raised beds, if you do it right, will produce as much as you can in the ground. In the ground gardening, you're going to have 5 feet in between rows. And a lot of people say, well, I can do it with 3 or 4. Well, by the time that squash blows out here so wide, you can't get through it if you've got another row of something else and then some squash, or you get a big old okra plant or big bushy tomato plant. You need that 5 feet. But inside a raised bed, if you remember, I built my trellises 6 feet off the ground from the top of the raised bed. I planted a row right next to my string for my green beans, and I planted a second row right behind it and helped them things gather themselves over and run that rope trellis that I built straight up. So a 64 foot row suddenly became 128 on one side. And then I did the same thing on the other side. So my trellis was actually like an H, or like a horseshoe, a square horseshoe. And then I had it set for the sides, and I had the middle open so we could get airflow inside. So I had 2 rows and I had 2 rows. So I could work these 2 rows easily on this side. I could walk around my raised beds and work the other 2. Now all my raised beds are connected. Your first raised bed's gonna have 4 ends on it. Just think about that. You need a separator. Sometimes you're gonna grow something different in the next bed. You don't want the roots coming inside. They may suck the same nourishment out. A raised bed, you can grow stuff close together, and you don't have to worry about the plants beside it sucking all the nutrients out of the soil because it's in a separate bed. But you got to use your crop companion chart, because a lot of times you'll have insects that are detrimental to this plant and they're good for this plant, so you got to watch that. But your next raised bed, you can just connect. You can just nail the boards onto the side of it, come out here, and you're only doing 3 sides because you got the barrier here, so you're only doing 3 sides. So you're saving this lumber on every other bed, if that makes sense. Just remember, the most important thing is do not use any treated material. That material will get in your soil, and in your soil, your plant is going to suck that chemical up into it, and then you're going to consume it. The whole purpose of gardening is eating better nutrition. You're not eating pesticides and herbicides, so you definitely don't want to eat materials made that's had treated lumber chemicals introduced into your soil. I appreciate you joining us today on Deep River Farm. I hope this has been something that's beneficial to you about building yourself a raised bed. I like to do mine 4 by 8. Think about it. Lumber comes in 8-foot sections, so you can chop off 4 feet. You got 4 feet and 4 feet. That's 1 board. Then you got 2 boards. So you got 2, 4, 5, 6. You can make a 4 by 8 bed out of 6 pieces of lumber. So that kind of helps calculate it all out for you too, when you need to know how much lumber it's going to take to build your raised bed. I appreciate you joining us today. Y'all have a blessed evening.